text communication now. Yeah, because it's so far out of date, it's not going to update, so at least you get a chance to walk through the transaction.
Call this caucus to order. We appreciate our guests for coming in today. We are a little short on time, so we do have a 5:45 hearing, so we'll skip the formalities and let you get right into it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dana Allsway from ABM Parking Services. With me is Vito Del Vescovo, also from ABM Parking Services. Bud Sweet, NDC.
Scranton.
And
Ed Kincaid, Floberg. William Johansson, Floberg.
I think we need this.
we're here today. We'd like to introduce the chosen multi-space meter vendor for the on-street upgrade project. As you may or may not know, we've been for the prior month and a half going through an award process that began with ABM and NDC hiring a parking consultant to help solicit competitive bidding that were made publicly available to any and all organizations that would wish to bid. We not only our primary purpose was to review on-street parking upgrade to replace the current meter system that you have today with a multi-space device that you see here that these gentlemen have brought. We received 6 different proposals from various manufacturers of a multi-space device. We narrowed it down to 3 short list, all upon the basis of the offering of a color touchscreen for the user interface. We then shortlisted it to 2, the gentleman from Flowbird and another competitor, and asked them for a best and final offer. We have awarded the contract to Flowbird and the Calais branded on-street multi-space meter device for this project. So we would like to just do a quick demonstration to show you how the product works, and I'll turn it over to these guys to do so.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'm Ed Kincaid. I handle business development for all of the Northeast for Flowbird. Just a quick background, Flowbird, we are the worldwide leader in parking technologies, headquartered in South Jersey, so we're local in Scranton. We consider this to be our home market, so we thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. You may have some familiarity with our technologies. We currently work with most of the large cities in the United States, including New York City, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Detroit. We are deploying 2,000 of the same exact machine that you see here in Philadelphia. In the upcoming months, we've won the most recent requisition there. They also have 4,700 of this model, which is our newest model that we recently deployed in Chicago, which we completed this past February. The kiosk is solar powered and communicates by cellular communication, so there is no infrastructure required. The bolts are inside of the steel casing that you see here, so there are no exposed bolts or hinges for anybody to exploit that had any bad intentions as far as the kiosk is concerned. The beauty of this is it has the color touchscreen technology, which is a newer technology in the parking market. As you can see, it's a very simple process to pay for parking. Step number 1, press the start button to wake up the monitor right there. You then get very clear instructions, which we customized here for Scranton here today. Tap to start, put in your license plate number. So the touchscreen is very responsive as far as that's concerned. It's hard to detect from the side. Say ABC123. Just going to check your plate rights. You can assign different rights to different plates. Okay. Because it's after 5 o'clock, it's asking for my payment method, so it's asking to insert a credit card. Slide it in right there. Please remove card. Select bank to stay. Stay for 1 hour. Click the next button. It'll be $2.35. See how we customize the screen interface here to really promote Scranton in the home Valley, there's a screenshot of the city. We can customize it with the ABM logo or a Parks Scranton logo. And then you have the option to print the receipt, to text the receipt, or no receipt at the end of the transaction. And that's a nice feature to have that, a text receipt as opposed to receipts, which can turn into letter on your streets. The casing itself is made out of stainless steel. Okay, so in this environment where you get a lot of snow during the wintertime and you're putting salt down, you don't have to worry about any rusting qualities. So this casing here, we would expect to look good for a long time. All the components inside of it are what we call plug and play, meaning they're easily upgraded. Okay, so as new technologies come on board, whether that be credit card processing or cellular communications, okay, we're able to upgrade each component as we go along. That's basically it. Any questions?
Yeah, quick question on the solar powering. Since we're slowly becoming the Seattle of the Northeast because of our weather, is there a problem with solar powering if you get into multiple days without sun, or is it the battery backup kicks in and that's how it works? Or
any ambient lights can charge us. We were about 4,500 meters into the Chicago install before Vortex hit this past February, and we knew we were going to face our biggest test fresh out the block with a brand new product. We had no failures during the whole Vortex in Chicago, where they did receive temperatures as low as -60 with the wind chill. So battery life on this, the tax benefits for 3 to 5 years. It's not unusual to get more than that out of the battery.
it talks about in the backup you're able to disseminate messages and other information, even possibly advertising. What do other cities do as far as that's concerned?
So we have an advertising program down in Miami. If you were to go down to the city of Miami, not Miami Beach right now, they have an aquarium and a Cirque du Soleil that they rotate through the screens. We've done some deliveries here with the city of Scranton. My marketing folks are big The Office fans, so you can see some Thunder Mifflin advertisements right there. So we have the ability to put events that are going on in town. If you have any events happening downtown, a farmer's market, anything going on with any universities, sporting events, as well as actually paid advertisement for any local businesses.
Are you going to have, these are going to be 18 feet apart roughly?
We're going to work on the deployment to see what's optimal on a block-by-block basis.
Okay. And if a meter is down, according to the legislation, a vehicle then parks in a space, but they can't use that, they still get a ticket for that? How does that process work? I don't know if you can answer that.
They will still have the option to pay by phone as they do today. And also, as you may have just mentioned, you can actually pay at any device. So it's all pay by license plate. It's not space specific. So it doesn't matter where you park. You could park on Adams Avenue somewhere and pay on Mulberry at a different device.
Okay.
If you so desired.
Okay. Can you talk about Section 6, or Section 22 rather, Part D, the loading and unloading zone? Apparently we're getting rid of all the 15 to 30-minute parking signs that used to be in front of businesses downtown. The legislation says 30-minute only parking per block at its sole discretion for use by businesses located thereon. Just explain how this works. How is this going to work for businesses?
Well, currently, as you stated, there are 15 and 30-minute time zone spots for pickups and deliveries. As part of the legislation, they'd be going away to be replaced with loading zone spots. And in fact, ABM, Community Development Property Scranton, is working in conjunction with Scranton Tomorrow and the merchants to find the ideal location for those loading zones, so commerce can be conducted unimpeded. That's a work in progress.
Okay.
It'll be coordinated with the placing of the kiosks and.
Okay. So to just be one per block, and then you're going to
Well,
get together with the businesses and
Well,
figure out where to put that?
Well, blocks are either rectilinear or square, So there may be more than one per block. There may be one per block face, depending on the number of businesses and the need for loading and unloading. You know, some people have more frequent loading versus unloading, so we don't want to be in a situation where we've got everyone going to one loading zone if that doesn't make sense.
Okay. All right, so blocks where you have retail on both sides, or is a heavily congested retail location, you might have one on each side of the street.
Correct.
All right. Yeah.
Again, working with Scranton tomorrow, working through them and with the merchants, we'll come up with a plan that works for everyone.
Just had one question when you were doing the demonstration. How large, because we have a lot of senior citizens in Scranton, how have the kiosks been in other areas for typing in the, because it didn't look that large from, and again, I'm far away, as far as when you go to type in your license plate?
Everything is scalable, so we can customize the interaction for seniors. It's also ADA compliant. It's a software change. It's just a matter of getting the right screen flow.
So we could expand that out a
Yeah,
little bit
everything there
larger.
can be customized and signed off by the operator.
I know you touched on a little bit about location-wise, so in a normal block where you have, again, retail on both sides and you have a pretty full block, do you anticipate having 2 kiosks, one on each side of the street in the middle of the block, or how does that normally work?
It's based off the number of parking spaces. You want to be very cognizant of the user experience of walking to in front of the kiosk. Typically, it's one for every 8 to 12 parking spaces, but that's going to depend on the size of the block face.
Okay.
So what we will do is an extensive mapping of the paid parking areas of downtown Scranton, and we'll map it out accordingly.
Anyone else have any questions?
Did you guys want to comment on the legislation that's before us at all? We have the one that Councilman Gahn talked about, which is we discussed before. If you have any comments on the residential permit parking plan as well, or are you good with that?
We're good with that. We just want to emphasize both verbally and in the legislation that the garages that were selected
Right.
for that program are underutilized. They have undercapacity, and that's key. It's that language is key, and that understanding is key, because we're allowed to do such a program because of underutilization and protect the bonds.
Okay.
Anyone have anything else? Well, we thank you for coming in. I know I'm very optimistic about the new system. Personally, I hate the meters. I think this will put us in line with most other cities our size, larger and smaller throughout the country.
And I just want to, in that, the city that put these in 2 years ago, where I live, Binghamton, I've talked to Councilman Evans about this. As part of the research, I talked to Jared Cram, who's the deputy mayor, and he spearheaded that project, and they were very, very pleased with the system, and it's achieved everything they've hoped in terms of making on-street parking more orderly and usable.
Yeah. It's a big step forward for us, and obviously, you know, being here for the last few years, how antiquated our meters are now, and how a lot of them don't work and some don't, and we've ran into that problem before. So it's nice to enter into the 21st century in the 21st century. So
Can you go through real quick the timeline of when this project will begin and when you think it will be finished?
It's around a 90-day lead time from the day the order's placed to when they'll arrive on site. These guys can speak a little bit more about the actual install process and the amount of time it takes to install each meter.
Yeah, so we're looking at deploying 50 pay stations per week. It'll take us about a month once we get started. So, and then we're looking at probably what was it, possibly mid-October, finishing up by mid-November. For the real cold weather.
a quick question. Currently, the meters define the parking spaces right now. So when a kiosk is installed, obviously that goes away. So how do we identify parking spaces with the kiosk system versus a meter system?
So typically with a system like this, where you don't have a meter that's identifying each space, you want to identify your paid parking areas with signs indicating that this is a paid parking area. You must visit the kiosk at the beginning and the end of where your parking area is.
All right, so you might have a no parking zone at the corner, and then everything within there would be the parking areas, or there'll be other signage that addresses that?
Yes, that's
Okay, all right.
All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to call this public hearing to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Donahue.
Here.
Mr. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Gahn.
Here.
Mr. Rogan.
Here.
The purpose of said public hearing is to hear testimony and discuss the following. File of the Council Number 69, 2019, amending file of the Council Number 47, 2013, entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the consolidated submission for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the period beginning January 1, 2014, by amending the 2014 Action Plan by utilizing $126,902.90 under the Home Investment Partnership Program to build a 2-unit rental house for low-income families in the city of Scranton, or to acquire and rehab 2 vacant houses in the city of Scranton for low-income families by and through the Scranton-Lackawanna Resources Development Corporation, a subsidiary of the Scranton-Lackawanna Human Development Agency.
Is there anyone who would like to address council specifically regarding the CDBG legislation? Let the record show nobody wanted to speak. This meeting is adjourned. This meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for all those who have passed away in our community. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Donahue.
Here.
Mr. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Gahn.
Here.
Mr. Rogan.
Here.
I make a motion to table items 7A, 7C, and 7D.
Second.
On the question, these pieces of legislation are being tabled this evening so we may obtain additional information. We anticipate having that information prior to the July 3rd meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A minutes of the Historical Architecture Review Board meeting held May 9, 2019. 3B, Tax Assessor's Results Report for hearing date held June 12, 2019. 3C, Controller's Report for month ending May 31, 2019. 3D, Tax Assessor's Report for hearing date to be held July 10, 2019. 3E, Agenda for the City Planning Commission meeting to be held June 26, 2019. 3F, Minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meeting held May 15, 2019. 3G, Minutes of the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held May 15, 2019. 3H, minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held May 15, 2019. 3I, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held May 15, 2019. 3J, agenda for the non-uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held June 19, 2019. 3K, agenda for the Tax Collection Committee meeting held May 30, 2019.
Are there any comments on any of these items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have announcements at this time? I have a few. Just to note, there will be a motion this evening to table item 6C on the agenda. There's a 30-day public comment period on this piece of legislation as required by HUD. Also, council's next meeting will be held on Wednesday, July 3rd at 12:30 p.m. Caucus will be at 12 noon in the clerk's office or in council chambers if necessary. We will continue to meet on Wednesdays at 12:30 throughout the month of July. And finally, I know it wasn't here last week, but we discussed as a group implementing a new policy regarding the time limit. So from now on, the first bell is going to ring at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. It'll give you 30 seconds to wrap up your thoughts. At 5 minutes, the bell will ring again, and at that point, your time will be expired. Anyone else? Our first
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Our first speaker tonight is Gerard Hetman.
Good evening, Council. Gerard Hetman from the Lackawanna County Commissioner's Office. To begin this evening, a special thank you to the Scranton Police Department for their participation in our Bike Safety Fair held this last Saturday at McDade Park. We had Lieutenant Nemeka and Officer Knock present doing bike safety talks, demonstrations, and helmet fittings and checks for all children and adults in attendance. We appreciate the support of the Scranton Police Department for this event year after year. Second, swimming facilities are opening at all 4 Lackawanna County parks. The lakes at Aylesworth, Merle-Sarnoski, and Covington parks are now open. The pool at McDade Park is set to open June 29th. The pools will be open through mid-August. Swimming is free at all county lakes and pools. For more information, call our Parks and Recreation Office, 570-963-6764. Third, the Farmers Market nutritional vouchers for senior citizens are now available. This is a joint program between the Lackawanna County Area Agency on Aging and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Distribution dates for locations in the city of Scranton are as follows. Saturday, June 29th, the Southside Farmers Market, the 300 block of Alder Street, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Also, Tuesday, July 2nd, that will be a pop-up farmers market on Courthouse Square, 9 a.m. to noon. Thursday, July 11th, Marketplace at Steamtown, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then also Saturday, July 27th, at the South Scranton Farmers Market, again, the 300 block of Alder Street, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Seniors must present proof of age and county residency. They must be 60 years old by December 31st of this year and must meet federal income guidelines. Additional dates are available outside of the city for events for seniors to visit. Any questions or for additional dates, please call 570-963-6740. Fourth, the Lackawanna County Disability Action Committee will be having their workshop on the Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. It's Thursday, July 27th at the Hilton Scranton and Conference Center. Covers compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act for local governments during the morning session and businesses in the afternoon. To register or for more information, please contact Keith Williams at 570-344-7211, extension 303. Also, our dates are available for our Family Fun Day series at each of the now remaining 3 county parks, and our Art in the Park dates. The Family Fun dates are July 13th for Merle-Sarnoski Park, July 20th for Covington Park, August 3rd for Aylesworth Park. Those are 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. They're all on Saturdays. And then the Art in the Park dates are Tuesdays during the month of July. July 9th, Merle-Sarnoski Park, July 16th for Covington Park, July 23rd for Aylesworth Park, and July 30th for McDade Park. 10 a.m. to noon each day, free art activities for children and accompanying adults. Also, Penn State Extension is doing their Surge Safe course for food service workers. 2-day program, July 11th and July 18th, held at Penn State Scranton. The cost is $185 per participant. Contact Nicole at 570-421-6430 to register or for more information. And last but not least, the Lackawanna County 3-on-3 basketball tournament is now open for registration. July 26th through the 28th, once again on the 100 and 200 blocks of Wyoming Avenue, right here in downtown Scranton. Teams go from grades 3 up through the adult open divisions, 3 to 5 players per team, $100 for children's teams. The adult open division teams are $110. To register or for more information, call 570-963-6743. That's all we have. Lots of good stuff coming up this summer, so please check it out. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Our next speaker is Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, city resident and taxpayer. In reviewing the agenda, 7A is the escrow account for rental registration. And I listened to you during the caucus discussing the fact that the administration is still working out the fine points of how they will implement this program for the escrow account, which calls to mind one issue I think that may be ignored or forgotten, unfortunately, and that is I don't think that Northeast Revenue Services has done an adequate job of scrubbing the list of delinquencies in any area, be it rental registration, dog catcher, garbage fees, or property taxes. I spent several days at the county in the tax claims office just looking at the delinquencies for the county's library tax, which of course includes a lot of Scrantonians. The information only went back to 1992 because before then they had not entered the data into the computer. The list just for the library tax was 1,670 pages long. Obviously, there were many entries that once they were entered as delinquent were never deleted from the list. Looking at the A's alone, okay, there were 31 entities, either businesses or people, individuals, whose delinquencies went back to 1992 and continued through 2018. So as administration works on developing procedures for 7A, they need to readdress with Northeast Revenue the state of these list of delinquencies. If you don't have a valid list, you cannot drill down on the genuine delinquent parties. You're just wasting your time. Also, with regard to items 5D, 5E, and 7B, these are RFPs. 5D is Fidelity Bank, 5E is McClure, and 7B is Reuther and Bowen. Now, last week I pointed out that if you looked at attachment D on the submitted RFPs for Reuther and Bowen, you found a one-page document which is signed at the bottom, but the questions were never really answered, other than paragraph 1, where at another place they listed all of the officers and their positions. Now you just created an ethics code of conduct and you're setting up an ethics board. And isn't it an ethical requirement on these disclosures by the firm or the contractor, things like gifts, things like political contributions? I mean, they don't say yes or no, they just go to the bottom of the page and sign. What's that supposed to tell me as a taxpayer? What does that tell me about the administration in terms of oversight where it is accepting these types of RFPs? Now, I don't care if only one person put in a bid. Somebody needs to go back and have these questions answered. So I will refer you in today's backup to page 150 on Fidelity Bank, 232 on McClure Company, and I don't have, page 350 for Reuther and Bowen. You will see their attachment D submissions. Maybe I didn't find it, maybe it didn't get included in the backup, but I would like to see those questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Elman?
Well, gentlemen, since Jennifer sort of refuses to come before the people of the city and tell us or address what she's for or against or something. I just take it for granted we're supposed to vote for her out of pity because she's a lesbian. Now, don't you jump all over me for saying that, because last week I explained my feelings about this. That has nothing to do with it. This is what people are saying all over the place that I talk to about this election, about her. It doesn't make sense why she doesn't come out, and she's in hiding or something. I don't know. I told you last week, for years and years and years, I hung out in the Beverly Shaw Club that was got like a 99% lesbian bar in Studio City because I loved the place, the people, the management. So you can't say I'm anti-Jennifer for that. I just don't see why she doesn't come out like everybody does when they run for an election and tell us something about herself and what she wants and all. And next is this Mrs. Finnan. She's just a $144,000 failure with her proposal of raising taxes to the utmost. Brother Wayne, let me ask, because if each property was raised, let's just use $100 figure, a year times 5, you're talking about 4 or 5 million, times 5 would be $25 million. We owe $200 million at the school system. What is she trying to get to? All we're going to have is foreclosures and abandonments, and these houses won't be on the tax roll anyway. This woman is just a complete failure with her, what she was sent here to do. And quickly, I was wondering, what's happening about this building and the sale and swapping or changing or something?
We're still waiting on those potential suitors that think they might want to buy the building. We don't expect much to come out of that, so I would expect, I think it's the 28th is the deadline for that. So after that, I think we have to get down to some serious conversation on how we're going to restore this building. That's what's going to happen.
This is something that, like everything else, it'll be put off to next week or next month or something.
Well, there's a deadline on that RFQ that went out.
Like all of Scranton's problem. One other thing, I was reading about the cuts this morning in the paper, in your article. I hit a hole last year that was 6 or 8 inches deep right by my house on North Main, made by a company in Wilkes-Barre, Fancelli Enterprises. They never went to anywhere to get permission. You can't, I got papers and phone numbers from this whole city. I talked to people. Nobody knew where the hole come from. And it was so bad that Russo and Steele had to do all the work over again a couple of months later. In the meantime, nobody had fixed my car, and I talked to a real clown down at about this, and I thought it was a big joke. He said, just 1 minute, I'm going to let you talk to my boss. This other guy gets on. He said, oh, Mr. Ellman, don't worry. I'm going to take care of this whole thing this weekend. I'll send you a check. Blah, blah. Everything about these cuts is just, if you knew how frustrating it is to have to fool with this city and these people about cuts and potholes, something would be done immediately. You ought to drive up Wells Street and see the mess they've left, and they think they're through. They put a pipe or gas pipe or something in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellman. Bob Bolus?
Evening, Council. Bob Ball of Scranton. I'm going to make a comment to the Sunday Times, June 23rd editorial, where some clown named Sean Cuff from Pittsburgh made a derogatory remark about me. This is just the hate and bigotry that's gone out against me from the community outside of the city of Scranton. This idiot left Scranton. If he was so great, he should have stayed in the community and made it better. To chastise me, somebody that's employed people for 57 years and added to this community in many, many areas that I've taken care of people here. This clown left and has the nerve to chastise me from Pittsburgh. Worry about a sanctuary city that Casey and the rest are trying to do, and wake up and smell the coffee. My comment to the individuals outside the city of Scranton that are making their comments regarding me, I'm telling them now, tread carefully. You're overstepping your bound. This is Scranton City business, and you may not like the consequences that you're about to face if you continue with it. If you're in the city of Scranton, you're more than welcome to comment against me. You're more than welcome to say any damn thing you want to say. My freedom is my freedom, and where it is. The hate group and bigotry that came from Rothschild's group that's been against me, I just wonder where the University of Scranton was on the advocacy since they're a Jesuit or Catholic and Jesuit university. I think we should rescind their nonprofit status since they don't abide by the rule of God. And I'll go on with that and we'll see what happens there. The other part of this is you guys patted yourself on the back in the Recreation Authority of Naog for total incompetency, gross incompetency. You gave 200 spaces away for $100,000 a year. Any prudent business person, and of course you're not in business, so you wouldn't understand that, and sure in hell the authority up there doesn't. At $5 a day for 24 hours, which would be 200 spaces, at $5 a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks, equals $364,000, not $100,000. It's the price of a Big Mac. Everybody could afford one. And you guys settle for $100,000 a year. Beautiful. City asset blown down the tube by incompetence. That's 200 spaces you guys gave up, and the authority up there for approximately $137 per day. Where was Rothschild or her professionals that she could bring here regarding this matter? Okay, you want to teach us how to do business? Where's your professionals? They must be better than we are, because they got to be, because we can't prove what we're doing. That a displaced New Jersey carpetbagger could show us how dumb we are, that we can't handle our assets.
Mr. Rogan, excuse me, this is inappropriate.
And
He's attacking
I'm
somebody that's
looking-
not here,
I'm
that's not
looking
even on
at-
the council yet.
Mr. Gahan,
How does
I'm
this have
speaking,
anything to
you'll
do with
get-
city business, Mr. Rogan? I'm not addressing him, I'm addressing Mr. Rogan. This has nothing to do with city business, nothing.
We have let
It has
speakers-
everything to do with city business.
I don't agree. I don't agree with it either, but we've
Mr.
allowed
Gahan,
a
you're
lot of
wasting my
latitude.
time, and I'd ask the time put back on.
An extra
You should learn
15
his
seconds.
place. Now, I'm going to put you in your place, Mr. Gahan. It's about time. I sent you a letter requesting in writing, and I know you know how to read, so I'm sure you understood that I asked you what happened to the 500 parking spaces at the city of Scranton. We paid $4.5 million. It's your responsibility, not mine, to go to the authority. It's your responsible as a councilman that's paid to give me that answer. And I'm a resident and a taxpayer in this city. You owe me that answer. I don't have to do your job. That's number one. I want that answer. The other part is, I asked you about hitting, and you didn't do anything about that. That's a gross violation of your ethics, and you're the champion of the Ethics Commission. He did it while employed in the city. I'm at 4:29, dear. Okay, on my clock here. I didn't hit 5 minutes yet.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're ringing the bell at 4:30 so people have a chance to wrap up their thoughts.
Well, I'm showing only 4:29 that I had on my clock here. The other issue was that naturally in Naog Park, you showed your incompetence there by patting yourselves on the back for $100,000. You know nothing about business.
Thank
The
you,
other
Mr.
part
Bowles.
is,
Mr. Bowles, your time is up.
well, no, he took a minute there. I just want to finish my last thought.
15 more seconds, and that's it.
He won't articulate a question. He lied to me about sending a letter to the authority. And go ahead, if I can't get your answer, I want your immediate resignation from council.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
That's an ethics violation.
The next speaker
and I'm
is-
gonna push it.
The next speaker is Paul, I can't read the last name, Paul. I apologize.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Paul Marconis. I live in the city, and I want to discuss about dilapidated properties. I had occasion to walk from top of Piston Avenue down to Mooser Street, and I counted 21 dilapidated, abandoned, run-down properties, and they're all on the east side of the street, distantly. There was one on the west side at the bottom. There was a door open, and people would go in. This is sad. This is contagious. It's urban blight. Well, those properties next to hardworking, tax-paying property owners who they keep their lawns nice and their houses nice. They have to live next to those places. These houses had no electric meters, no gas meters, wires hanging down, junk in the yards. You don't see this thing when you're driving by. You got to walk and see these things down here. This is a shame. It's a shame. There needs to be something done about it. Contact the owners, get that after them, or no owners, put liens on them, tear them down. I also want to mention Mr. Bolus. Nayard Park is a park, not a parking lot. I think they should charge guys $50,000 a year. That's all I have, Jane. That's all I have, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Les Spindler?
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident, homeowner, taxpayer. I agree totally with Mr. Bolus. We keep giving away things for nothing in this city, and that's why we're in the shape we are. We sell land for $1. We give away parking spaces for cheap. Nobody listens to him. He comes up with good ideas all the time to save the city money, and nobody listens to him. I just can't believe you people that you can't come up with good ideas for yourself, and you won't listen to anybody else. Moving on, since you're changing your schedule for July, this will be my last meeting till September. So I want to talk about the legislation you're not going to talk about tonight, but I'm going to talk about it tonight anyway. You tabled it. As you shouldn't be surprised, I'm totally against the city settling that lawsuit with UGI. Our streets are a mess. You passed legislation in 2015. If they don't like it, too bad. Let them fix the streets the way they are. I'm retired, but I work part-time delivering auto parts. I deliver all over the city. I drive all over the city. The hill section's a mess. Every part of the city's a mess. These streets are a disaster. Mifflin Avenue between Linden and Mulberry, it's a mess. Where Dunkin' Donuts is, has anybody ridden that lately? These streets are a disaster. There's no way this lawsuit should be settled. They should have to suffer the consequences of the crappy work they do. I mean, I told you about the streets of Tripp Park. They're paved less than a year ago, and they're digging them up. That's wrong. And they should have to pave the whole block. They shouldn't have to just patch up the holes they're making. It's ridiculous. Streets paved less than a year ago, and they're making a mess out of it. Something's got to be done. They got to be held accountable. And I've talked about this for years. Again, you don't listen. I guess you don't care what kind of streets you drive on, but I do. All right, on a good note. In August, I think it's August 17th, there's going to be a professional wrestling show at the Steam Town Mall, of which my daughter is going to be a part of. She's a professional wrestler. She's trained with Backbreakers Entertainment, but now she wrestles for PPW, it's Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling. They wrestle once a month in Hazleton, but in August it's going to be at the Steamtown Mall. And one of the guards there said it's August 17th. I was at her show Saturday and they weren't sure, but I guess at the mall they should know the date. So I'm encouraging everybody to go see that show. It's a lot of fun. They're really entertaining wrestlers. They're really good. And not just because my daughter's part of it, but I'm very proud of her. She started off wrestling locally in the city. Now she's traveled all over the state. She's gone as far as Nashville, Tennessee to wrestle. And she wrestles in Pottstown and Quakertown and in that area. It's called Worldwide Wrestling Alliance. And she's the women's champion in Worldwide Wrestling Alliance. So I even talked to Jim Coles from Channel 16, trying to drum up publicity for that. And hopefully the newspaper maybe will do a story too, because they did a story on her in March. There was a match at the Hilton, they called the Shamrock Shakedown. Gia Mazer from the Times Tribune did a story about her. It's called the Weekend Times. She was on the cover and a big story about her in the center. So I'm going to try and drum up all the publicity I can for the show, because maybe they'll come back more than once if they have a good turnout. Like I said, it's April 17th. Usually it's 7 o'clock. And it's outside the Crunch Gym. So I hope they get a good turnout in that. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for your time, and as the song goes, see you in September.
Thank you, and congratulations to your daughter. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. Sitting here listening to this debate about a candidate for council who I guess says that she's a lesbian and she's married to a woman. Well, we've had heterosexuals allegedly run this government for a long time. The most important issue that I have in this whole debate is one very simple thing. With all the people we've elected, no matter what their sexual orientation is, I don't know if they've ever read the Constitution of the United States or the state constitution. And it's so really troubling because we have a government that doesn't represent us. We have a city government that's getting ready to sell this building that followed Act 47 right to the death of a city. We're debating silly little issues about rental registration and more ways to suck money out of a corpse. It's the silliest thing you've ever seen. We have children going to school in the Scranton School District as it was looted just like the city was from the inside over decades. And the same voters that elected the council members voted for the school board members. And they just elected incompetent people. I don't care if somebody's a heterosexual who gets elected to government and marches their wife and their children out. I don't think they belong on the political platform with a candidate, and I don't think people's sexual orientation belongs there either. What I want to hear is, what do you understand about government? What do you understand about the role of government? And how will you serve the people that you want to represent? And to be quite bluntly honest, this council's a failure. Act 47 has been a complete failure. And I would hope that the people at home tonight would read the Pennsylvania Constitution and try to, in their own mind, without me telling them, what the Pennsylvania Constitution says as far as public education and who should be paying for it. And don't listen to the teachers' unions and the elected officials, because, elected people, they just want to control people. That's all. It's enslavement. I find it remarkable that in Washington they're talking about making payments to ancestors of slaves. But nobody talks about the Irish slaves that came to America. Read it someday in history. They were using Irish women for breeding stock. I don't hear anybody talking about making reparations to the Irish, because at one time, Irish were less than black. Read your history and know where this country came from. And why aren't we giving American Indians money, since we massacred almost all of them to take this country? We've allowed political people to spin agendas which have separated all of America. And we're at each other's throats as we're being overtaxed by our government. And the court is being used as a weapon to step on people, just like this council does, and this mayor. You create laws. Most people have no ability to go to court to fight for themselves. They hire an attorney, maybe, who might know what he's doing. But then if an attorney makes an error in his filing of your petition, you're done. So where are we going here? We've got a government that instead of being worried about empowering people and making their lives better, we're trying to figure how we're going to take more money off them and enslave them further. And you know, Donald Trump, he's only the beginning, because this country is ripe for something that's terrible. And you can see that just with the rain tax in Luzerne County, what's spinning over there, just one county over. They're not going to have it. And they've legislated in other places, and they're not going to have it either. And the legislature in Harrisburg, they don't know what they're going to do, because there's a full-fledged revolt taking place on people being overtaxed and mistreated by their government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Norma Jeffries, Scranton resident. And as I was thinking about coming tonight, I was thinking, why do I come to council meeting? Why do I give up my time on a Monday evening and come down to council? And I answered the question because I want to know. I want to be informed, and I want to hear it myself, and I don't want to read it in the paper. I want to hear what's being said so I can make my own decisions as I live in the city of Scranton. So I appreciate you guys sitting up there and telling us about the city and the different things that you've done. I appreciate the things that I've brought to council, that you've listened to me, and you've acted on some of them. I do have still some outstanding things that I've presented that I haven't heard the outcome of. So as I mentioned before, there is a tab on the website that lists the projects. And I keep looking at that tab to see if there's going to be anything in there, in case so I can keep track of what's going on at council. I had spoken with Mr. Gahn after the meeting last week, that when you read those letters, I mean, I think I can understand what's going on, but when you sit and read a 3 and 4 paragraph letter and expect us to comprehend what you're saying, you know, to me that just doesn't sit well with me. So you had said that it's out in the minutes on the website, and I did go and look on the minutes, and there's 37 pages of minutes from last week's meeting. I didn't see, I didn't read it all for word, but I didn't see the letters, and I think, Mr. Evans, you had a letter too that you read, and it's not uncommon for you to read letters to us. And I'm PC savvy, so I can go on and look and see what you've done and what you've said, but you know, John Q. Public out there may not have the facility to go on and to listen. So that was my first thing. The other thing that I was wondering about was, I said about the project empty, about the guidelines, I guess the ethics panel. And I was looking for something in your ethics, the latest one that you put out, that talked about the behavior here at council. And I just don't feel that it's being attended to. I feel very uncomfortable sometimes when the banging of the gavel, the other night when you guys walked out, I thought that was very inappropriate, because I kept thinking, gee, I went to someone's house for dinner and they left me sitting there in the living room while I didn't know what was going on. Was I safe? I don't know. Was there anyone here to keep anyone from coming in the door and harming us? I don't know. But it was a very unsafe and insecure situation for me. And I'm speaking for me, Norma Jeffries, that to leave us sitting here in this room with no protection, no one here to stop anyone from coming in that door to give their opinion. We were just sitting here, like, for how long? I had no idea how long we were going to sit here. I guess it was 10 minutes or so, but I thought you owed us more than that, than just walk out and leave us sitting here. And the gentleman that talked about Naog Park, I don't know the all situation that's going on with the lighting, but I do know that it's a beautiful park. I enjoy the park. I enjoy the rose garden up there, which is just beautiful. So I don't know what the lights are going to do to the park up there, but I just hope that it's not going to destroy it. And we'll just wait and see, but it is a beautiful place to just stroll and clear your head. That's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi kids, Lenny Cerebro, Scranton resident. Last time I was here, I did mention about how, you know, I would have liked to have known who comes up with the reassessment that most people know my house burned, and I rebuilt the whole house, same footprint, same size ranch house, but I got a $5,000 additional increase in my property taxes. I'm just wondering, whoever assessed it, did they take into consideration that I'm in a flood zone? Probably not. But anyway, I'm here to really talk about the flood problem again. Whenever I hear that, waiting for an answer for council to tell me something about the flood problem, and I always hear that nobody gets back. You know, the Kaiser Valley flood problem has been going on so long. So when I hear that nobody got back to you, you know, I give it a considerable amount of time. You know, like it's been 2 months since my last time here. But y'all know that I always come back. You know, so I'm never going to forget about this, and I'm going to continue fighting. So once again, if there's no answer, the least I'm trying to accomplish is for people to see on TV that there's something drastically wrong with this administration. You know, I've been fighting this flooding problem for about 3 years now. My neighbors have fought it and given up for over 20 years. But I intend on sticking with it. I don't understand why we can't get any results. Last year, we decided, we came up with a plan to open up a drainage pipe that was shut down some years ago. And a bunch of power people, John Poches, Director Gallagher, and other power people all agreed, boy, that's an easy fix. It's gonna not cure the problem, but alleviate a lot of it. You know, so they said, all right, next year. Well, it's next year. And I'm still waiting to hear, like, nobody has given me an answer. How about it? Can somebody give me finally an honest answer if something's gonna get done about it? Or, you know, just be honest about it. Tell me, screw you, Len, you know, we're not doing nothing, instead of leading us on, and the other neighbors too. So maybe after all of this, maybe that drainage pipe would be fixed by probably Friday. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Marie Schumacher. On 6B, I do not believe it is proper for one person, any one person, including the mayor, which this is what it allows him to set the parking rates. I think it needs to come to this body, go through this body, and not give the mayor or other appropriate officials the ability to approve the parking rates. And 7D, Did anybody check to see how much we paid, whether it was like $275 or $250,000 for that lot on 500 Lackawanna Avenue? I know it was close to that. We gave that away for $1. The owner of that property allowed it to expire, got extra time, and now we want to let him renege on a payment of another $500,000? I mean, come on. What are we doing? What else could we do with that money? That lot's been sitting there a long time. I could think of a lot of things we could do with that money. Did anybody check on that, on the rain we had on the 26th of May? Where the 2600 block of and more of Pittston Avenue turned into a lake? No.
I put in a request, and I know Tim has too, about trying to get the pipe fixed that's coming down Kane Street with regard to that, and they haven't,
he said
as far as I know,
last week
they haven't gotten out to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's divert for a minute then. I mean, that was being requested of, I believe, the sewer authority to do that work, not the Scranton people who should be doing it. But if we're going to do that, there is a tremendous runoff. If anybody uses 307 between the overpass and say Lake Scranton Road, there are several areas where the water just is inches deep, and of course that turns into ice in the wintertime. And if you will look, and I don't know if it would solve the whole thing, they seem to have, they being the city and the PennDOT at Snook, but down there the water is going right over the drain. And I think that needs to be reamed out there too. It might stop it, it might not, but they might be able to do something else. That is a hydroplaning accident waiting to happen, gentlemen. And I hope we don't wait until somebody's killed before that's fixed. There's at least 3 places, and the one is really, really bad. Also on that night, did anybody check to see how many requests were made of the fire and police that night for help, and how many of them we were able to respond to? See, I think you people should be doing that. I mean, all over the city. Some people are going to get served and some people aren't, and I don't know how those decisions are made. I don't know if all of them were fulfilled, but I know even, is the 1700 block of Wyoming Avenue completed? That project? Meadowbrook?
No.
Do we know?
I
We
just
don't?
talked to Mr. Young this afternoon, it's not.
Okay, when will that one be?
I don't know, it's currently, it's currently in litigation at this point.
Is the city at least sending the engineer out to see whether Ryerson Avenue is leaning even more toward the 1700 block of Wyoming?
That I don't.
To me, the last time I was there, it looked as though that garage that's got the stream going underneath it, and I think is condemned, it looked like that was the only thing holding up that road. So I think that should be checked on a regular basis, just to protect our liabilities. Okay, the rest I'll come back with next week. Good Lord willing, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident, taxpayer. Once again, potholes are on the list. And I finally think I figured it out. You know, our utility companies want us to have a vibrant town too. So if you just take a drive over all their digs, your teeth will vibrate right out of your mouth. You know, it's they love it. 500 of or 300 of Cedar Avenue, I mean, it was just repaired, and there's 2 big digs and giant divots in it. Third rate, if you could call them third rate repairs on it. And when they do, I read the article on those, and they also, if they do make a cut, they don't totally fill the slice with asphalt. So that's a water entry. The next thing you know, it comes by for winter, and you have a big hole. You know, I kind of inherited a little whirligig car, and it was 2007. It was 11 years old then. And in 3 or 4 years, I replaced front end bushings like 3 times on it. I had to tear the whole front end apart and replace those bushings, and that's silliness. On 7C, our UGI, stand our ground. I'm tired of it. That's related to potholes. You know, it's just, I don't know who is throwing this, but it looks like the state of New Jersey type road patches in the middle of Hickory Street, the 500 of Hickory. And now, if I were you, Wayne, I'd get my shotgun out and I'd go out there and fire a round or 2 in the air and tell them, get back to work, Buster. You know where that is, don't you? Having some fun here. And on the 500 of Lackawanna Avenue, well, I was down during that period at Buona Pizza, they were trying to put out of business, basically, under eminent domain, and they paid, I think it was $275,000 or $285,000 for that lot. And the city bought it off of the people catty corner, Alexander's, and that's okay, but now we're asking for relief of a $500,000 loan after they bought it for $1 and never did anything with it, and shame on them. And shame on us if we let them get away with it. Once again on NAOG, maybe those people on our recreation authority could go up there and negotiate for a swimming pool repair instead of a splash pad. Swimming is exercise. Splash pad, I can do that in my own shower. And if you have a bunch of people, I pointed out before, romping around up there, somebody could get knocked over, bang their heads, and you got just about the same liability as if somebody drowned. A few weeks ago, and I don't want to bash anybody on this, when I talk about national issues myself, I try to turn it into a little fable. Like, please don't do what the politicians in Virginia are doing, or the politicians in North Carolina are doing, or even Dakota. They deprived Native Americans as for the right to vote last year. And the point being that we come up with all kinds of crazy laws. That governor at that time wanted to he wanted to make a baby quick and go sleep on the couch law. That's what I'll call it, in the interest of being. So, you know, like we hear all of this stuff about people's orientation and things. Guess what? I don't care. I want to know what they think about selling City Hall.
Thank you.
Please don't do it.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Perry, any motions or comments?
Yeah, just one brief comment. This is 5C in regards to, it's just from the Amos Towers. They've just been a great partner with the city of Scranton. They made another donation to our fire department. I just want to read a letter they they addressed to Chief Lucas on June 11th. Dear Chief Lucas, on behalf of Amos Towers, located Jefferson Avenue, we would like to thank you for all the hard work that the Scranton Fire Department does on a daily basis. Each year, we reach out to see what the department is in need of. This year, we would like to make a donation of $2,500. So Amos Towers, every year, they make a very generous donation to our fire department. They seek out some of the things that we need that maybe we couldn't get through a grant or other funding measures, and our fire department always comes up with something that would really help the city. This year, we're going to use that donation to purchase a 35 millimeter Nikon camera and 3 sets of cordless tools to be used for fire investigations. So again, this letter was sent by the Vice President of Community Development, Martin Fota. So I want to make sure I give all the thanks and praise to Amos Towers and Mr. Fota for the generous donation. They always reach out to us every year, and this year is no different. And I know our fire department will put this equipment to good use to keep safe and do proper investigations in the future. That's all I have for you right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Donahue, any motions or comments?
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Evans, any motions or comments?
Yeah, first of all, I want to comment a little bit on what Mr. Cerebo mentioned about your increasement in assessment and taxes. It's my understanding you built a brand-new house that should have been eligible under the previous 3-year tax abatement that the city had in place, so you might want to check into that. If that's the case, you can save yourself some money for the next 3 years. Maybe we can get if you want to stop by the council office, maybe we can get a copy of that legislation for you so you can review it and see if that's appropriate for you. Recently, I've been discussing the need for a coherent, not recently, for a long time, the need for a coherent policy on condemnations and demolition of buildings almost since I've been on council. I've asked for this information from the administration for longer than I can recall. In fact, recently I requested that the LIPS department provide me with a complete list of properties that are currently eligible to be on the demolition list, as well as the policies and procedures that are currently in place to determine what property should actually be demolished. To that point, I've been waiting for weeks and weeks for an answer to my latest request, maybe longer. And that's clearly longer than any elected official or citizen should ever have to wait for information. So last Friday, I had no recourse but to send a right-to-know request to the city's right-to-know officer for this information. The fact that I even had to do this points to a much larger and more serious problem, so that's all I'm going to say about that subject right now. I also want to comment briefly on the editorial in today's Scranton Times entitled, "Apartments Hide Behind an Old Assessment." I appreciate the editorial board confirming what I've been saying for what has probably been decades. Not only will reassessment bring about tax fairness and tax equity to property owners throughout Lackawanna County, but the city of Scranton, it will bring information and data that we can use to finally address our seemingly endless ability to accurately establish how many apartment units are actually in the city of Scranton. For 25 years, we have been chasing our tail with the rental registration effort that is still operating with dated and sometimes extremely inaccurate information. With new and more accurate information created through the data collection process of a reassessment, and combining that with possibly renewed commitment by city officials to give the city employees in charge of that the resources they need to get the job done, we might actually get it right after 25 years. And then we could begin to register rentals at a much higher level, which not only give us valuable analytics to use in planning and allotting for the limited resources of the LIPS department, but will also ultimately allow us for a reduction in rental registration fees and refuse fees across the board. Parks was a subject tonight, so I want to bring that into the conversation. With the recent announcement by the Recreation Authority and Geisinger on an agreement that will infuse approximately $1.3 million into Naog Park over the next 10 years, as well as the reopening of the downtown Renaissance Park in the rear of the 500 block of Lackawanna, and the pocket park planned by Scranton tomorrow at the corner of Linden Street and Wyoming Avenue. Parks are being talked about quite a bit lately. So I'd like to expand that conversation just a little bit to put it in context. A recent Penn State researcher study concluded that 83% of responders to that study said that they personally benefit from their local parks, and 92% said that their community as a whole benefits from local parks. The researchers also found that trails and parks and open spaces can increase nearby property values. In a separate study in Chicago, it focused on a 2.7-mile trail that was added to the Chicago Logan Square neighborhood. That's an area where the real estate market really isn't that strong or wasn't strong before the trail was put in. But after the trail was implemented, they saw a 22.3% increase in market value for properties that were within a few blocks of the trail itself. These type of results tell me that we need to refocus and continue to build on the current assets that we have, because parks are assets. We need to develop new ones when it makes sense, but most of all, we need to find ways to get more value from our park system. This can be done partially by creating connectivity. Parks need to be connected to neighborhoods. Trails should be connected to the downtown and other neighborhoods. And bike paths and lanes should connect to all of our city assets. It's a simple solution to getting more value from an existing system. So we continue to see some positive developments like what is happening at NAOG. Neighborhood parks like Connors Park and Southside have shown what can happen when neighbors take ownership of a park. And the downtown park as envisioned by Scranton tomorrow, that is moving forward, that will serve the ever-expanding residential community that is becoming part of downtown. Most of that has happened organically because of initiatives by caring residents and neighbors and other organizers, but the park system can be much more. It can not only be a city asset, but a community draw, a marketing tool, a property value enhancer, and a neighborhood anchor. So for too long, we have struggled just to cut the grass while barely maintaining the status quo. We have not committed the necessary talent, vision, and resources to our parks, and we can do a lot better than we are. So I'm hopeful that the Geisinger CMC NAOG model can show us a blueprint for corporate and public engagement. And we can begin to look at our parks and trails and open spaces as more than just a line item on a very, very stressed budget. It just might be worth taking a different look at our parks and what they provide for all of us. And finally, as usual, I'd like to remind everyone that every day is your chance to make this city a little better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gahn. Any motions or comments?
Sure, thank you. Mr. Evans made a comment about having to do a right to know for the demolition list. I'd just like to remind everybody, and Councilman Donahue brought this up a few weeks ago, this council has subpoena power. It's in our home rule charter, and we should start using it. Why should elected officials have to put a right to know in? We are a body that has oversight over the mayor's office and over every other department in this building. And that is one of the reasons why probably the fathers of this city specifically put in that this council would have subpoena power. Now, should it be abused and used all the time? No. But in the cases I've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, we should be using it. Subpoena people to come in here, subpoena documents if you need to. I don't think any elected official should have to put a right to know request in. And then this administration pulls the typical BS all the time, and if you're looking for one letter, they extend it to 30 days. It takes them 30 days, and that's, I'm sure, what they're going to do in Mr. Evans' case. 30 days to come up with a document that they should be able to hit a button and print it out. Secondly, I usually don't comment on this, but I just have to say, first of all, Mr. Ellman, her name is Jessica, not Jennifer, and I am sick and tired of sitting up here every week through the character assassination of this person who was a very good person and who decided to put her name in the ring and run for this office. And we allow it to happen every week. It doesn't have anything to do with city council. It has nothing to do with city business. It has nothing to do with the agenda that I'm looking at right here. There's nothing on here that says Jessica Rothschild. Nothing about her. I'm sick and tired of it. And the ignorance, and it's suffocating. And it's a wonder why the hell anybody would want to run for this office. They're not even elected yet, officially elected, and they have to sit through this every week. Shame on all of you who stand up here and attack this woman who ran for council. Shame on you. It's the last time I'm going to say it, but there needs to be decorum in these chambers. It's turned into a WWF. Get up, talk about Jessica Rothschild, talk about what you ate for dinner last night. It's ridiculous. And everyone likes to cite free speech. There's something called hate speech. Read a few Supreme Court cases on that. Also, Mrs. Jeffries brought up third order correspondence about the letters that I had read last week. Just for the record, I have brought up time and time again that third order should be reserved for any, and it says it right here if you look at our agenda, reports and communications from the mayor and heads of departments and interested parties in city clerk's notes. So I do agree with you. It should be a matter of regular practice that any letter or correspondence that we get from a department head or the mayor should automatically be put in third order. I don't know what else I could do. I've said it before. I've requested it. I've made motions to put these letters in third order. It should be a matter of practice. I don't know what we're waiting for. So I hope that answers your question. On to a few citizens' requests. Resident reached out about Knox Road, needs patching. Mrs. Reed, if you can please send that to DPW. Also, I'd like to send a letter to the Chief of Police regarding issues at Building 26 and 27 of Hilltop Manor. The past few years, I've received several complaints. I think the police department's trying to do the best they can, but I continue to receive notice from residents that there's noise, loud music, cursing, no one can sit in their backyard. So if we can please send something to the chief again and remind him about that. Also, I recently met with residents of K Avenue regarding water runoff issues. There's an issue with the pipe that runs along the alley there. I met with two of the residents within the last week and a half. Mrs. Reed and I were in contact with DPW, and we received notice that they are going to assess that situation for a possible remedy. Also, 1132, 1134 Rock Street. A gentleman has reached out to me, I think, every year when the weather gets nice. There's a vacant lot that's overgrown all the way over the sidewalk and into the road. We did send it to the Licensing and Inspections Department. And Mrs. Reed, if we can ask and see if DPW, I know they can't go on private property, but if they can at least clear the brush off of the sidewalk, because at this point it's impassable. Also, a few weeks ago we asked for an update from Joyce Hatala and Tom Lynch about the recycling program. We requested specific information during that caucus with them a few months ago. We have not heard back yet, so Mrs. Reed, if you can remind them to please provide us with that information. In the caucus tonight, the Ethics Board was brought up. We currently have 4 members that have been chosen. Mayor Courtright has sent down one person that he has picked. Council has given their 2 candidates, and Mrs. Novembrino has given her 1 candidate. So at this point, instead of waiting for the mayor to send down the last person, I do think it's appropriate, instead of to continue to wait, to ask our city solicitor and the city solicitor to draft the legislation for these appointments, send it to council, and we'll leave 1 seat empty. They'll end up having a quorum, and in the meantime, we can have, once they're appointed, we can have the lottery for the length of the staggered terms. So I would appreciate, Mrs. Reed, if you can take care of that. Also, Solicitor Menor is not here tonight, but I would like to move forward on the BYOB legislation. If you remember from a few weeks ago with the case of the Castle Club on Main Avenue in North Scranton, I do think we should try to find a way to regulate those type of establishments. They're allowed to stay open because people that go into them can bring their own beer, and they're allowed to stay open, I believe, until 5 a.m. Obviously, that poses a lot of problems for people in that neighborhood. So I would like an update on that next week. And we also received a letter from the manager of the borough of Taylor regarding an incident on Reynolds Avenue with water runoff. It runs into the Taylor-Scranton line. I actually was in contact with the president of Taylor Council, Kenneth Mikovits, and we're hopeful that the city will do their part to take care of that issue. That's all I have this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Just 2 quick items. I wanted to give thank you to the DPW for a quick response regarding a handicap sign that was left up for quite a long time in a neighborhood, and I know there's a shortage of these signs, so I think the city does need to do a better job on an ongoing basis of removing signs that have expired because they're taking up spots in neighborhoods where they shouldn't be. And then I know there's also people out there that are waiting to have those signs put in front of their house. But I want to thank the DPW. I sent in a request last week, and within 2 days it was taken care of. One other quick item. Mrs. Reed, I don't want to read the addresses on the air, but I did get a report from a resident of South Scranton about possible illegal rooming houses that are operating on one particular block in South Scranton. So I will send you those addresses, so if we could send those to Director Hinton to have them take a look at it to see what the status on those properties is. And that is all.
5B for introduction of resolution authorizing the Director of the Department of Public Works of the City of Scranton to sign and submit the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation application for traffic signal approval for traffic signal permit number 6685 at Mulberry Street to relocate the stop bars and perform lane restriping on the westerly approach of Mulberry Street to Jefferson Avenue.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, this, I think, comes from a council request from a few months ago. Residents were complaining about large trucks and tractor trailers turning from Jefferson Ave onto Mulberry Street and driving over the curb, so hopefully this takes care of that issue. Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5C for introduction of resolution accepting a donation from the Board of Amos Towers presented to the City of Scranton Fire Department in an amount not to exceed $2,500 for the purchase of a 35mm camera and 3 cordless toolkits to be used in fire investigations.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5D for introduction of resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Fidelity Deposit and Discount Bank to provide paying agent services for the City of Scranton from August 1, 2019 through December 31, 2024.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5E for introduction of resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with McClure Company as energy services company for the City of Scranton to provide the most impactful citywide energy savings strategy to improve the efficiency of city-owned facilities.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, I'd like to thank the mayor and the business administrator and the city administration for, once again, going through with trying to make all of our buildings in the city energy efficient. And through this legislation, hopefully, once this company conducts an investment-grade energy audit of the facilities, we can develop an energy savings plan and a strategy and eventually be able to pay for some capital improvements from the savings we would receive from being more efficient. Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 67, 2019, an ordinance amending file of the council number 41, 2016, amending file of the council number 91, 2002, an ordinance as amended, providing for the establishment of parking meter zones within the city of Scranton, establishing hours of operation, providing for the installation of meters and parking meter rates, authorizing the enforcement of parking ordinances and providing penalties for violations thereof by amending Section 3A to reflect the change in hourly rates, by amending Section 1 to add a definition, Section 7 to modify the use, Section 14A and B to change the temporary suspension, Section 15A and B to address changes for permit parking, and to add Section 21, adopting the map for on-street parking, Section 22 to abolish time zone parking, and to create loading zones within the downtown.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I appreciated the gentleman coming into the caucus tonight and actually bringing one of the multi-pay stations with them. I think this is going to be a much more user-friendly system, and judging by their comments tonight, we're going to begin to use technology that many other cities have been using for years across the United States. So I think this is a net benefit for the city.
I would agree on that point, and I would also like to mention one item that was discussed a little bit at the caucus that I think will be possibly an issue in some areas is the elimination of the timed zones, the park 15 minutes, park 30 minutes. I've had a discussion with a number of business owners who wanted these signs in front of their property, their businesses as well. Part of the problem with the old system was these signs were pretty much just thrown up by request. There wasn't really a rhyme or reason as to why some businesses were allowed 15-minute or 30-minute parking in front of them and others were not. So I think this standardizes that system. And also, I'm a huge fan of the kiosk model versus the old-fashioned meters for many reasons, but one being convenience. If you go to any major city or medium-sized city, this is the system that they are on, and we're finally catching up in that respect as well. Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
6B, reading by title, filed with Council Number 68, 2019, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the city of Scranton to approve downtown residential parking rates for the downtown Scranton resident parking program.
Heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, for people that don't know, I'm a downtown resident, and I am also a customer of ABM, and I pay the monthly rate of $90 per month in one of the garages that is part of this legislation. So as a councilman, I will not opt into this program while I'm on city council, and therefore I will be not paying the reduced rate. I will continue to pay the $90 per month that I'm paying now. I just wanted to disclose that before we vote.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
6C, reading by title, filed with Council Number 69, 2019, an ordinance amending filed with Council Number 47, 2013, entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the consolidated submission for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the period beginning January 1, 2014, by amending the 2014 Action Plan by utilizing $126,902.90 under the Home Investment Partnership Program to build a 2-unit rental house for low-income families in the city of Scranton, or to acquire and rehab 2 vacant houses in the city of Scranton for low-income families by and through the Scranton-Lackawanna Resources Development Corporation, a subsidiary of the Scranton-Lackawanna Human Development Agency.
Heard reading by title of item 6C. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6C pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
I would like to make a motion to table item 6C to comply with the 30-day public comment period as required by HUD.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and it's tabled.
Seventh order, 7A, previously tabled. 7B, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 126, 2019, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Ruther Bowen PC to provide engineering services for the City of Scranton 2019 roadway improvement project.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. I'm going to be voting for this, but Ms. Hodawanis brought up a good point. I believe I brought this up before about attachment D for the disclosures by firm or contractor. It's my understanding that when the firms sign off on the bottom and they don't include anything else, that their answer is that they have not, they don't have a direct financial, commercial, or business relationship with any municipal officials, so on and so forth. But I do agree that it is confusing when you look at it and there's nothing on there, they just sign the bottom of it. So I'm going to be voting for this, but Mrs. Reed, if you could just find out from, Mr. Bolzoni would probably be the best person to go to for this, and just ask him if, in fact, that is the case, and if it's not the case, and there is an additional information, then they should provide that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Peary?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, previously tabled. 7D, previously tabled. 7E, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution Number 129, 2019, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a grant agreement by and between the County of Lackawanna and City of Scranton pertaining to a Community Reinvest Grant 2013-32 revised.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Meeting's adjourned.